All right, welcome into the CFB season show, continuing our fall camp intel series. Proud to have a returning guest, Jeffrey the Greek, man. What's up, man? How we doing?
I'm doing great. We're what, 16, 17, 18 days away from actual live college football. We're getting close, brother.
Bro, we getting so close, and you was just telling me pre-show how about how fourth grade and you was just teaching tackle football, and I bet you that's making you really excited, and smelling the cut
Well,
grass, the pads
oh yeah.
hitting.
Yeah, we got we'll see how we'll see how it goes first. It starts next week for my fourth grader. It's the first year of tackle football for him. It's my
Uh-huh.
first year coaching tackle football after doing a lot of flag football. So we'll see if I'm as excited for the sport of football about 2.5 weeks from now as I am right now. I might be frustrated instead.
Yeah, I can see you being frustrated a little bit, especially with the young ones, But I mean,
Mm-hmm.
football's in the air, like you said. I think we 17 days away. I want to say so. As we're getting close, till week 0, we got a big week 2 game. I mean, this is all going to be about Iowa football, but we got a big week 2 game looming with the Iowa State Farmageddon, and man, we could jump into Iowa. Well, everyone, the whole off season was about the 2-time FCS national championship quarterback transfer, Mark Gronowski. I think that's how you
Yep,
pronounce his
got
name.
it. Gronowski. Yep.
And man, the whole world wants to know, man, how's he looking? What's give us some update.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because there was a video that's been a big video in the Iowa circles, on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. And it was just pretty much a simple out. There wasn't anything all that special about it. It was just a really crisp rollout pass to one of my favorite receivers, Caden Weechin. It looked good, don't get me wrong, but I'm kind of wonder if Iowa fans are so starved for a good looking passing game that a simple out is all it takes, and we get all hot and bothered. But with that being said, there's reason to be excited. I think this is probably the best quarterback we've had since at least Nate Stanley. If you can kind of match that up with the improvements you saw the rushing attack last year, it's enough to get Iowa fans excited, and I might be one of them.
As you should say, man. But how's besides that though? Like, what else you hearing about from the QB player?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. He wasn't able to throw nearly as much as we would have wanted him to in the spring. We, meaning Iowa fans, he had the little labrum surgery that he had to have, so he didn't actually get reps in the spring. I think he's been pretty much full go most of the summer and certainly for camp. So, a lot of people are getting the first looks at him, but with that being said, there's a lot of question marks you would have with a 4 or 5-star quarterback, a young quarterback, or maybe a highly ranked quarterback that had very little data and film at a bigger school, that never cracked the lineup, like somebody that transfers from Ohio State to Alabama or whatever. In this case, there's a lot of film, on Mark Gronowski, so I don't think there's as much of a question mark. So what I have tried to do with Iowa fans is I've tried to dance on both sides of the fence, which is I want to kind of mute things a little bit. I don't think he's going to be the next John Elway. Okay. With that being said, there's things that he brings to the table that should get Iowa fans excited. And then, you do comps, right? Like, what's the comp for Mark Gronowski? So here's my comp for Mark Gronowski is Tim Tebow. Okay. And of course, Tim Tebow is one of the greatest college football quarterbacks of all time. So I don't pretend to say he's going to be that good, but the game is what I'm trying to say. Like, the game is similar in that he's not going to be the quarterback that sits back and just picks you apart with, 38 attempts during the game, but he can throw a hard ball. He can get outside the pocket and make things happen with his legs. He can push the pile because he's such a strong physical quarterback. I believe that is that's skill sets that Tim Lester, Iowa's offensive coordinator, will bring to the table with Mark Gronowski. But for the most part, I don't think we're going to see it until week 1 and 2.
So he had over 380 rushing yards each season. So, and man, he's really good production on the ground. I'm sure I was going to have designed runs. You mentioned Tim Tebow on the ground. physical, I guess, physical, smart, tough, not going to throw that much, accurate. That's kind of like some vibes I'm kind of getting from what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if it could be something like he averages a crisp and clean 200 yards through the air and 30, 40 yards on the ground, for me, and I think any Iowa fan, we will take that. I believe the biggest thing that you'll hear Tim Lester talk about is we need to see the efficiency of the quarterback increase tenfold. The completion percentage, touchdown to interception ratio. We are not looking for first team, second team, all Big Ten. It's not going to happen. That's not what the approach is at Iowa. But a good year, an efficient good year. If you can match that with the defense, special teams, the running game, that's how it all comes together.
Man, I've been keeping up with your position rankings. I've been really enjoying what you've been doing with that work, man. I'm really appreciate you dropping that information for all of us to see. I'll pull this up, man. You have Iowa as tied, I think, for number one offensive line in the conference, and deservingly so. I'm hearing a lot of hype on a couple of guys, not just one guy. So I guess to probably that being the strength of the next strength of the team would be the offensive line.
Yeah, I would say offensive line is number one. I've tried to. Oh, look at that! You got the data all pulled up. That's impressive. So I tried to do my very best research on this. We talked to insiders on the Eyes on Big podcast for almost every team. Maybe a couple guys that have even more eyeballs on the Iowa team than maybe I get sometimes. And I kind of wanted to check myself here a little bit. Like, can I do this? Can I put Iowa on the one line along with Penn State? I've done all my rankings in tiers. I believe there's enough there to say it was a really good offensive line last year. Led the Big Ten in rushing for most of the year. Ironically, Penn State is who wound up getting Iowa at the end of the year. There are 2, if not 3 future NFL guys that I see on this line right away. Penn State has 5 returning starters. I think I maybe only see 1 or maybe 2 future NFL guys. So if you kind of balance out the 2, I think that puts the Iowa O-line, the Penn State O-line really close to each other. So I didn't get too much slack for putting one of my teams number 1 in this tier, but I wouldn't do it unless I felt like I could defend it. I think it's going to be a really good Iowa offensive line.
From top to bottom, there's no weak spots. I've been hearing some really good things about Jennings Dunker, the right tackle.
Yep. I think he's an absolute mauler, especially in the run game. I think he's going to project to be a 10-year guard in the NFL is probably how it'll work out. I don't know if he's quite athletic enough to be a tackle at the next level, but for what Iowa needs him to do with our schemes, he's a great right tackle. We got a center that's got some NFL buzz. Both guards are a little bit more unheralded, but extremely solid. Keep your eyes on Kay Piper. I think he's going to wind up being one of the NFL guys. So honestly, left guard, center, right guard, right tackle, knock on wood, as long as they stay healthy, it's excellent. The big question is at left tackle, but I do like the bodies that are available to compete and get into that spot. I still think it'll be Bryce George. He's the lower level college guy that the coaches were really high on and went into the transfer portal and spent some money on. He's an athletic tackle. Don't get me wrong. I would think it would take a little while for him to get up to speed, at the big level that's changed up to. But then Trevor Locke, Jake Dotzler, those are other guys that are vying for that left tackle spot. So I'm not saying it's a done deal, and I got no concerns at all, but a little bit less concerns when you have the one spot on the offensive line. There are offensive lines, if you look down this list, that have multiple open spots that they have to figure out. So, in comparison, I felt pretty good about Iowa's.
Man, behind that offensive line, there's the massive bulldozers. I mean, whenever I think of Iowa football, I think of tight ends first, but then nice. I think of O-line play though as well. So I'm really excited to see this offensive line come together this season. I mean, we lose Caleb Johnson to the NFL, but I'm really high on these other 2 backs, man. We got Kamari Moulton and Jason Patterson. I'm really high on these 2 backs.
Patterson, yep.
Let's talk about.
And we probably roll 3 deep pretty well with the running backs. I would have a little bit of caution for Iowa fans in that, Caleb Johnson was pretty special, and it doesn't mean that there is just a massive drop off, but there's a drop off there from Caleb Johnson. That guy apparently has been lighting it up in the Steelers camp as well. Like he's already turning heads there. So if you are an Iowa fan expecting the rushing attack to not drop off at all, I think you're, kind of setting yourself up for some disappointment there. So, but good, capable running backs. I think, every running back on the top 3 running backs on Iowa's roster, I think they would all play in every Big Ten team. I don't know if a lot of them would start on the Big Ten teams. They're like all really good, number 2 running backs, which is actually pretty common across the conference.
That is pretty common. I feel like you got to have a 2 deep backfield in the Big Ten. How physical, how dominating, and just how big the frames are. You got to get a lot of hits on your body. You got to spread the love. But I'm high on the backfield for Iowa. I know we lose Caleb Johnson, really great back. I don't think it's going to take that much of a step back from the production from the backfield. It's not going to be all from one guy, but I think it's still going to be very serviceable and still very, can be highly productive, especially with the new QB play, taking a lot of pressure off. I'm looking at the QB play. I mean, obviously we don't want to pull it up from last year that much. Only 10 passing touchdowns on the season. I think Gronowski could get that in maybe 2 weeks, man. I don't want to put too much expectations, but I could see Gronowski growing off early in the season. Let's see.
Yeah.
Wide receivers. Let's jump into the receiver room next.
Yeah. So this has been a fun conversation for once to talk about as an Iowa fan in the offseason is the Iowa receivers. But as I have been doing, I have to immediately, set listeners up to say, I believe this is a good wide receiver group, but it's a good wide receiver group in comparison to what Iowa fans have gotten used to. So you have to take, the excitement with the Iowa receivers with somewhat of a grain of salt. With that being said, this is much better. I feel like last year, Jacob Gill is a bigger, better receiver than what people realize. It's just that there was so obvious that we couldn't throw the ball. It was so obvious that at times he was really about our only pass catcher along with our tight end. It was just tough. There just was not a lot of available, spots in the coverage for Jacob Gill to get into. But now that he can go back into more of like a number 2 receiver role, I think it's going to help out a lot. And that number 1 receiver, I think, is going to be Reese Vanderzee. He popped last year as a youngin, snatched the ball out of the DB's hands first game of the year, had a couple nice plays, got hurt, could not stay healthy. I saw him at the open practice this spring. He is bigger. He just looks like he is ready to roll. I've been hearing good things behind the scenes with him. So that is a good 1-2 punch that we need. Seth Anderson, speedy, quick wide receiver, but he's got to stay healthy. Can he stay healthy? Can this be the year he stays healthy? And then Sam Phillips is the transfer from Chattanooga. He might be the fastest receiver on the team. Lots of career catches, albeit at a lower level. So, I don't mean to go on and on about the receivers, but that's 4 guys. I could throw Jarrett Bowie in there too. That's 4 or 5 guys that I feel like can run around and get open. And again, I'm trying to be, a little bit tongue in cheek here, but we haven't had that in a tick here in Iowa City. So it's exciting to see.
It's one of the more underrated wide receiver rooms, I would say.
I think so.
Kirk Ferentz, he's very optimistic about the wide receivers. We talked about the offensive line, but they had a quote that he over the summer where he said he felt like a year ago we were getting there and it would start coming together, and it's almost like a mirror image with the receivers. So, man, a QB upgrade, one of the best offensive lines in the conference, underrated wide receiver room. Feeling like the offense, man, is going to come together this season. And I mean, I don't want to put too much expectations, especially from the history of Iowa, but I think it's going to come together.
I'll be disappointed if it doesn't just overall look better. I don't know if we're going to see a 9-yard jump in yards per game and, another 8 points per game on the scoreboard. I don't think it's going to be that big, but I'll tell you what is huge is when we need to convert on 3rd and 7+, we have a reasonable expectation that it can happen. Okay. So like,
Yeah.
I don't mean to laugh, but like, this is football. You can't
I
get
know.
yourself in 3rd and 2s all the time. There are going to be times where you have to convert on 3rd and 7. We were pretty much dead in the water. We have the chance to maybe make that happen this year, but we got to see it first.
It remind me of Oklahoma and Michigan last year. Just very dominant on defense, not much explosiveness or anything really going in the pass game, but y'all still somehow can win 7, 8, 9, maybe even 10 games without a subpar QB play. So
Yeah.
speaking of that, Phil Parker, man, I'm list of defensive coordinators around the country. I could see anywhere from, I've seen lists where he's in the country. Phil Parker.
Yep.
Some defensive talk. This has always been the strength and the reputation of Iowa over the last few years, and just incredible defensive coordinator. Doesn't take any step back this year for the defense.
Well, the defense took a little bit of a step back last year. Most of that, if you really pay attention to the stats, was giving up big plays and giving up 3rd downs. And that has been something that Iowa simply does not do. So why did that happen? I think it's chiefly 3 things. Number one, we had injuries and let's just say lack of want to out of a couple of our DBs last year. And it hurt. All of a sudden, we were down, essentially 2, if not 3 of our top 5 DBs, and most of them were at corner in the kind of the nickel spot, and it showed. All right, it hurt when you got younger guys that have to step in and they're not ready. Like my old DB coach used to say, when you make a mistake as a defensive back, it's in front of God and everybody. Everybody sees that mistake. You might not see it as much on the D line, so it showed last year. Do I think it's quote unquote fixed? I don't know, but I think TJ Hall has took a step up. Keep an eye out for Jalen Watson. Boy, did he look good at that open scrimmage I was at. Extremely athletic and aggressive. They brought in a new cornerback, Berrios. Apparently he's been looking pretty good. So I think we at least have options at defensive back or at corner, excuse me. At safety, I felt pretty good about safety already. The former 5-star Xavier Wampa, he's back for I think his 3rd year starting. Always showing flashes. Maybe see a little bit more consistency out of him. And then Cohen Entringer is who went down to Big Ten Media Days. So Kirk Ferentz doesn't say that you don't get voted by your teammates to go to Big Ten Media Days unless you've been showing something in practice and workouts. So I feel really good about safeties. If the quarterbacks can just provide that 2nd and 3rd guy more consistency, the D-backs should be in pretty good shape.
Stay healthy, keep growing. I like the continuity early of that group, especially, out the gate against Iowa State. But so you have, let's see, this is the defensive backs rankings right here. You got Iowa in the 3rd tier.
3rd tier. Yep. Yeah.
Is that just like, is it close? The 2nd tier, or
I would say tiers 2 and 3 in this instance are pretty darn close. But like, look at Nebraska. Nebraska fans weren't too happy with me that I had Nebraska down in the 3rd tier. They've got 4 or 5 returning starters in the secondary, but their defensive passing efficiency was pretty bad last year. I think it was like 90th or something like that. So for me, it's like, great, you got returning starters, but we need to see them play better. With Iowa, the passing deficiency was better on defense, but we've got some question marks. So to me, that kind of equals up to the 2 teams being on the same tier. Minnesota, amazing, safeties. Coy Parrish might be the best safety in the Big Ten if it wasn't for that guy that plays for Ohio State. But they've got questions at cornerback. So like, that's kind of the mixed bag right there. But if you go a level up, Illinois has got an extremely underrated defensive back group. In fact, I might even have flirted with putting them on the 1 tier. They've got some studs in the secondary. Michigan's got some studs in the secondary. Indiana's secondary looked really good. They've got guys back. So to me, 2nd and 3rd tiers are pretty close, but I think those teams deserve to be a level up from Iowa.
And Phil Parker, that's his specialty. He's a defensive coordinator, but he also handles the defensive backs. So I'm really excited about that. Let's go into the defensive line.
Okay. It's fun to talk about. I can start talking while you're pulling it up. So with the defensive line, with the defensive line. I really like Iowa's defensive line, but I don't know if I like it quite as much as a lot of Iowa fans, and actually even some guys outside Iowa City think. Like, it has been a very stout defensive line against the rush. So I don't see them giving up gobs of yards in the rush. Like, I think I will be near the top for rushing yards allowed. With that being said, it has been the lack of athleticism out of the Iowa defensive line that's kind of given me pause for concern over the last year or two. So I need to see that a little bit. So I've got Iowa in the third tier with the defensive line. Very deep, very stout against the run. I just, maybe it's Max Llewellyn, maybe it's some of the new guys we brought in. Bryce Hawthorne is a guy that I've heard has been popping, but that's out of the defensive tackle spot. Usually you need to see the pass rush come from the edge guys. So I think it'll be a good defensive line, but man, I can't put it up there with Ohio State, and I especially can't put it up there with Michigan, Oregon, and Penn State. Those are world-class, some of the best defensive lines in college football.
Absolutely. I'm looking at the production right here. We return Ethan Hurkett, Aaron Graves, Max I don't know how
Llewellyn.
to say his last. Llewellyn.
Yep, Llewellyn. Yep.
So 6.5 sacks, 6 sacks, 5.5 sacks. It doesn't look pretty, as you said, with the pass rush. It's but
not bad. I would say there is no dominant guy. There's like Oregon's got a dominant guy. Michigan's got a dominant guy on the defensive line. I don't see that on Iowa's defensive line. I see 4 or 5 different guys that can get you. If it's a matchup thing, maybe that's what makes a difference. Like, you might see a guy pop more one game and it's another guy's role the next game. So by committee, I think they can get to like a 30 sack area, but it's definitely not going to be one guy getting 11 by himself. I don't see it going down like that. But keep an eye out for Max Llewellyn and Ethan Hurkett. They're ready to take that 4th and 5th year jump that we see a lot of Iowa guys that have been in the system. So I've got my hopes up for them. I don't want to try to pretend like they don't got promise. I just don't know if they're going to be as dominant as you see some of these other guys.
I hear Aaron Graves' name a lot too around the country from the defensive tackles. He must be a beast in the middle.
Love having Aaron Graves. Definitely a run stuffer. Tough to run around the guy for offensive lines, but I would like to see him get in the backfield a little bit more TFLs at least.
Oh, absolutely. And so linebacker play. What's the expectations? Who's standing out right here?
We do not know. I got no answers for you. I got no insider information on what's going on with the linebackers. The only thing I know is this: we got new linebackers that are going to be playing. We just had a kind of a historic run at linebacker. Multiple All-Americans 4 or 5 years in a row with Jack Campbell and Jay Higgins. So we don't have that. We know that. What we do have is we've got Seth Wallace, the linebacker coach, who knows how to coach. Okay, so Iowa, I gave them the 4 tier by themselves because essentially all those teams beneath Iowa have multiple question marks at linebacker, just like Iowa does, but they don't have that history, right? We haven't seen it out of those linebacker rooms at Michigan State and UCLA and Washington for a couple years like we've seen at Iowa. So Iowa gets a tier by themselves out of respect for Seth Wallace and what they've done the past 4 or 5 years. But as far as who those guys are going to be, it's either going to be 4 and 5 year seniors that have not been able to bust through, or second year guys that we know are super talented. It's going to be one of the two that's going to be bust through, maybe a mixture of both. Hard to say, but as of right now, I don't know if we're going to know much about this until, first time the defense takes the field Labor Day weekend.
All right, I'm going to put you on the spot right here. Give me your top three players on the whole roster.
On the whole roster? Are we doing talented, most important? I just need to know the synopsis.
Let's go talent.
Talent? Okay. We got to do relative to their position. Okay. Right. I would go Logan Jones, the center. I would put him number 1. I might go a little bit crazy here. I'm going to stay on the offensive line and go Jennings Dunker. I know I just did 2 offensive linemen in a row, but I think it's the way to go. Then I'm going to get nuts. I tell you what, I'm going to go Jalen Watson. I know that's crazy. He's hardly played. I just got this feeling with Jalen Watson, and he's going to pop, and that'll give you kind of a wild card too in there.
All right. Lastly, we don't gotta go too much longer. I appreciate you so much for hopping on and giving us all this.
You bet.
I'm just looking at the schedule expectations, and man, I don't know if you've seen my preseason ranking. I know you're not too happy with my Michigan spot, but
no, it's all right.
I do have Iowa ranked, and I got Iowa taking down Iowa State week 2 in Farmageddon. Actually, I feel kind of confident in that game that Iowa's going to get it done. And I'm going to pull up the schedule real quick, and let me just get you a rundown real quick.
You bet. The one thing I want to correct you on is Farmageddon is Kansas State, Iowa State. So we can't take ownership to that. So Farmageddon is week 0. Yeah. So we're just the Cy-Hawk. It's the dumbest trophy in all of college football, but yeah, it's the Cy-Hawk trophy.
Cy-Hawk. I don't know why I was saying Farmageddon. Cy-Hawk.
It's all right. Well, it's because Farmageddon is front and center because, Kansas State and Iowa State are starting. That's the first game, week 0 in Dublin. So
not Farmageddon, Cy-Hawk. That's what I was thinking.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. So you look at the first 3 games, right? Albany, Massachusetts, I was going to win those games. So really it's Iowa State. And that is a huge game because that sets the tone for the state of Iowa and Iowa fans the whole year. So that game is important, man. It's huge. Is the season over if we don't win that game? Absolutely not. But the tenor of the season for the fans rests very much on what happens on September 6th in Lames, Iowa. Kirk Ferentz has won, I think, 5 in a row in Ames. He's pretty much owned Jack Trice Stadium. So I like our chances in that game. Sneaky game after those 3 games at Rutgers. That's a Friday night game. Greg Schiano, if you look at that on their roster, he is going to make a point of that game. So that game gets me a little uncomfortable, in the seat. But I don't think it's insane to think Iowa can come out of those first 4 games 3-1 or maybe even 4-0. Then we got some games after that. Indiana at home, at Wisconsin, Penn State at home, Minnesota at home, Oregon at USC. I mean, that is a insane and fun run right there. What could Iowa's record be in that, run? Not undefeated. I'm just going to make that call right there. You're not playing Indiana, Penn State, and Oregon, and not to mention games on the road at Wisconsin and a rivalry with Minnesota. You're not playing all of those games and going unscathed. The best they can get to, 1 loss is going to be huge in those games. Or can they win every game except for the Penn State, Oregon game, get 2 out of 3, Penn State, Oregon, USC? I don't know, but I know that, hoping for much more than that would be pretty high.
I'm looking at the schedule right here. This is a little tricky game right here Friday at Rutgers. I got 4. Yeah. I got 4-0 going into Indiana. You get Indiana. You get Indiana at home. We got to see how Fernando, is looking in the offense and stuff like that. That's going to be a tricky game right here, Indiana. I think.
And we get Indiana right after they play Illinois on the road. So at home. Yep. So that is. Oh, you got the Illini beating the Hoosiers.
I can see it. I do have L's at Penn State and Oregon. I want to say that's probably going to be right here.
Yeah. If I rank Wisconsin's tough. I mean, that is sandwiched. We get at least an idle week in between Indiana and before we go to Wisconsin. Yeah. That's something that, I'm pretty happy to see. But yeah, if you rank the 3 hardest teams for Iowa games for Iowa to win, in my mind, it's no question Penn State, Oregon, and then going to the West Coast to play USC. I think those are the 3 hardest games right there. But not too far underneath that would be Iowa State, Nebraska, and Minnesota.
I was gonna come to these two at the bottom right here. Michigan State, their offensive line's really bad. I'm kind of getting some bad vibes with them right now. USC on the road, USC on the road, and Nebraska on the road. Those two at the end. I think you're gonna have to split that. I feel like at the minimum.
Well, if we're going to split USC and Nebraska, I will take the loss with USC so we can beat Nebraska. I will take that deal right now. Nebraska definitely improved bowl team last year. They're going to be a bowl team again this year. Kirk Ferentz and the Hawks have looked pretty good in Lincoln. Been a while. Been a tick since we've lost. I think it's been since 2011 since Iowa has lost in Lincoln. So that's kind of one of those games where if Nebraska's going to beat Iowa, I need to see it first.
Yeah, man, 11 a.m. for that one at the end of the year on a Friday.
Oh, yeah. Yep, that's Black Friday, right after Thanksgiving.
So what would be a failure of a season and what would be a success of the season?
Failure, I mean, a legit failure would be not making a bowl. But I think Iowa fans would be pretty squeamish with 7-5 or less. I think if they drop down to the 7-win level, that's going to upset Iowa fans quite a bit. 8, it'll kind of be like kissing your cousin a little bit to a lot of Iowa fans. 9 or above, is I think mostly, where Iowa fans want to be. You never know what you're supposed to believe if people are being serious on Twitter or not, but you see a lot of 11-1 predictions, and that would be pretty impressive. I don't see that happening, but 9 wins would make Iowa fans happy. 10 or more would make Iowa fans ecstatic.
I think so too. Anywhere from 8-4 to 10-2 is kind of what I'm seeing.
Yeah. I would say there's a high percent. Off the top of my head, I would say there's a 94% chance that Iowa finishes between 7 and 10 wins this year.
Well, we appreciate you so much for hopping on and coming talk some ball, man. I always love talking ball, and I had you earlier in the year, so I'm glad you're a current guest, man.
I appreciate you having me on. I'm Jeffrey the Greek at Jeffrey the Greek on Twitter. We're the Eyes on Big podcast. We're putting out content at least a couple times a week right now, and we're going to be heading into the home stretch here. We'll have our predictions pod pretty soon, where Big Kurt and I will go through the predictions, and it'll be fun. Everybody join in, give us a listen. We appreciate it. And I appreciate you having me on the show.
Predictions are cut up, man. Who's your early lean?
What? Say that again.
You said predictions are coming up. Who's your early lean for the conference?
Early lean. Things sure seem to be setting up pretty well for Penn State. Essentially not picking Penn State is because you want to try something different than what everybody else is seeing. So I'm not completely committed to Penn State yet, but I haven't found a compelling reason to get off Penn State either.
I'm going Penn State.
All right. I get it.
Well, with that being said, man, we're going to sign off, and we'll see you next time, bro.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.